One thing that's been bothering me about this Warframe is that I never knew the correct pronunciation of his name. But after doing some research for the review, I finally found the correct pronunciation. It's Vauban, named after a marshal of France and the foremost military engineer of his age, Sébastien Lepestre de Vauban, commonly referred to as Vauban. The regular Vauban has to be the most annoying Warframe to get because his parts come as a reward from alerts that happen very sporadically. The primed version, however, can be farmed in Void like any other primed Warframe, and as a result of that, he's much easier to get because you can actually farm him. You can get his blueprint in Tower 3 Sabotage, helmet in Tower 2 Sabotage, chassis in Tower 4 Defense, Rotation C, and systems in Tower 3 Survival, once again Rotation C. The regular Vauban is actually pretty squishy, especially if he's running solo, and I will talk about this all later. He has 100 health, which goes up to 300 at rank 30, 75 shields, which go up to 225 at rank 30, and only 50 armor. He also has 150 power, which goes up to 225 at rank 30, average sprint speed of 1 and 3 polarities, a dash, a V, and an additional dash in the aura slot. The primed version is much tougher, coming in with 100 shields, which go up to 300 at rank 30, and double the armor, so he has 100. He also has one additional D polarity, so he has a dash, a V, a D, and a dash in the aura slot. All the augments for his abilities can be attained either by reaching the rank of partner under the parent sequence, or the rank of genius under Sappho and Suda, and they will cost you 25,000 standing. All of his abilities are deployed via a grenade that will stick to everything. It will stick to enemies, the terrain, other warframes, sentinels, well, everything. And their effects range from simply zapping the enemy with lightning, bouncing them around with trampolines, creating a Bastille that will prevent enemies from rushing in, or creating a vortex that will suck everything in. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and let's start off with his passive. So if there is another warframe within 20 meters, Vauban will gain 25% bonus armor, making him much tougher in a party scenario, especially if you're using the primed version. His first ability is called Tesla, where he will throw an electrically charged grenade that will stick to any surface, and if you manage to hit an enemy with it, it will deal 15 blast damage to them. Once the grenade has been deployed, if an enemy comes within 12 meters of the grenade, it will discharge and deal 150 electricity damage. Each grenade holds a maximum of 10 charges, can discharge every 3 seconds, and they have a duration of 40 seconds. Now, power strength affects the damage of the grenades, power duration does not affect the duration, but it affects the number of charges each grenade holds, and the attack range is of course affected by power range. The only known enemy that does not give a damn about your grenades is the Stalker, so they will not stick to him, and it's also a one-handed ability, so you can use it while performing many actions, including reloading. And finally, the electrical arc has a low status chance, and if an electricity proc happens, it will chain 50% of the initial damage to surrounding enemies in a small area, and it will briefly stun the original target. The augment for Tesla is called Tesla Link, which will connect all your Tesla grenades with a link that will deal 250 slash damage to every enemy that touches it. And you can increase the link damage by adding more power strength. However, this will only create a link between grenades that are A, within 8 meters of each other, and this is not affected by power range, so you're stuck with 8 meters, and B, grenades that are stuck to a solid surface. It will not create a link between grenades that are stuck to either other warframes, enemies, companions, defense cryopods, or pickups. Vauban's second ability is called Mine Layer, and it has the same mechanic as Ivara's Quiver. You have 4 different grenades that you can cycle through by hitting the ability button, and if you want to deploy one of the grenades, you simply hold the button down. The first grenade is called Bounce and deploys a trampoline. Yes, a trampoline. This trampoline has 4 uses, and there is a cooldown between each use where the grenade has to recharge, which is 3 seconds. If you run over the trampoline, it will bounce you upwards, as you may expect. However, if an enemy runs over the trampoline, they will be dealt 175 impact damage, and they will be affected by a magnetic proc, which will drain 75% of their shields over 4 seconds. And if an enemy is killed by the trampoline, it will not use one of the charges. And the only thing that affects this ability outside of efficiency is power strength, which increases the damage dealt by the trampolines. The number of uses is unfortunately not affected by power duration, and the size of the trampoline is not affected by power range. The second grenade is called Trip Laser, which will create a 10-meter long tripwire that will last for 30 seconds. If an enemy walks through the tripwire, it will stun them, and if they run through it, they will be knocked down. The length of the trip laser is unfortunately not affected by power range, but the duration is affected by power duration. This can be extremely funny, especially if you set up a lot of trip lasers in a row and just watch enemies face plant over and over and over again. The third grenade is called Shred, and this will deploy a mine that will explode if an enemy gets within 6 meters of it. It will deal 400 blast damage, and it will blow the enemies away, ragdoll them so they're basically stunned, and it will reduce their armor by 40% for 4 seconds. The damage and armor reduction of the mine are both affected by power strength. The explosion radius is affected by power range, and the armor reduction debuff duration is affected by power duration. However, the landmine duration is not. And the final grenade is called Concuss, and this will once again deploy a mine that will explode if an enemy gets within 6 meters of it. However, rather than doing damage to the enemy, it will affect them with a radiation proc for 8 seconds. And radiation causes confusion, making that target a viable target for his allies, and his allies viable targets for him. So basically the enemies will kill each other. The landmine duration is not affected by power duration, however the radiation duration is affected by power duration, and the explosion radius is affected by power range. Vauban's third ability is called Bastille, which once again throws a grenade, and once the grenade contacts a surface, it will create an energy-based containment field with a radius of 10 meters and duration of 15 seconds. If an enemy touches the field, it will suspend them in midair and effectively stun them. The maximum number of enemies that can be suspended in midair is 12, however this can be increased by adding more power strength. The duration is of course affected by power duration, and the radius is affected by power range. Now, if an enemy touches the Bastille and they're suspended in mid-air, they will assume a state of unawareness, allowing you to use stealth finishers on them. This allows you to do high amounts of damage to the enemy, or even one-shot them if you're running a dagger with the Covert Lethality mod. Bastille will not affect most of the bosses or sprays or rollers, however it will affect Jackal, the Sergeant, Councillor Vaheg, General Sarge's Rook, and even Kella the Thyme, although Kella will still be able to use weapons and abilities. And it also works on the Goose Track 3 and the Zanuka Hunter. The augment for Bastille is called Repelling Bastille, where if Bastille is at maximum capacity and it's holding the maximum amount of enemies it can, it will repel all enemies that try to enter it. And when it repels an enemy, that enemy will be ragdolled for a bit, and it will also deal 200 magnetic damage to them. Now, this augment has been bugged for quite a while. It is not affected by power strength. If you go below 100% power strength, it will not reduce the chance of repelling an enemy. However, if you're running Repelling Bastille, enemies will just randomly either drop out of the Bastille or they will ignore it completely, but this has nothing to do with power strength. The augment is simply bugged. And Vauban's fourth and final ability is called Vortex, which throws a device that creates a powerful force of attraction. This creates a vortex that will last for 12 seconds, and it will violently suck everything within 6 meters into its center. Enemies sucked into the vortex will be dealt 50 magnetic damage at a rate of 4 ticks every second. However, when the device is first activated, the initial tick will be multiplied by 200%. The damage of the vortex also has a low status chance, so enemies affected by it can be affected by a magnetic proc which will drain 75% of their shields over 4 seconds. Now, even though the damage of vortex is affected by power strength, it will always have the same DPS. Damage per second. So if you add more damage, it will slow down the rate at which this damage is dealt. So the more damage you do, the slower it will be dealt. The duration of the vortex is affected by power duration, and the attraction radius is affected by power range. However, this is modified in a way that has not been properly tested yet. Now, if an enemy is trapped in the vortex for too long, they have a chance of imploding, and if they implode, they will not give you any loot or affinity. So just kill them as soon as possible. On top of that, Vortex will not work on most bosses, and it does not take priority over Bastille. If you throw a Vortex inside a Bastille, enemies will be trapped by Bastille. They will not be sucked into the Vortex. The augment for Vortex is called Perpetual Vortex, where if you throw a Vortex grenade into an already existing Vortex, it will give 70% of its duration to that Vortex. So, as you throw in more and more Vortexes, the duration of your initial Vortex will be increased. Now, with high power duration or with maximum power duration, you can stack your Vortex to last for over 5 minutes. However, if you're really good at aiming your vortex in the exact same spot over and over and over again, this augment is useless because it only gives 70% of the duration rather than 100, so it's going to cost you more energy to keep the vortex going. And once again, like all Vauban's abilities, this is a one-handed ability, so you can use it while performing many actions, including reloading. Now, Vauban was the first Warframe that I ever bought with Platinum because I saw Mike B's spotlight on it. I was like, oh my god, an engineer. Yes, I want to play that, but I want to play that now. I don't want to wait for the alert, so I bought him with Platinum, and I fell in love with him. He's still one of my favorite Warframes, and the slight rework they did with update 18.13 just made him even better. Although I'm still a little bit salty that they removed the interaction between power range and trampoline, because I loved having giant trampolines and trolling my entire team with them. He is the ultimate crowd control frame. He may not be very well suited for something like sabotage, exterminate or capture, but when it comes to survival, defense, interception or excavation, he is the best. Preventing an entire armada of infested from bait-slapping your excavator is as simple as pressing one button. He is one of the few frames that can lock down an entire interception mission by himself. And now you can finally farm his prime version instead of waiting around for alerts that may or may not happen. So go and get Vauban. I cannot recommend him enough. He is so damn good. You will not regret it. Trust me. And that's basically it for the video. So I thank you very much for watching as always. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.